Okay, so this is the defense strat for Hanzo. And this is partially this is partially to show you like where you should be positioning in relation to your teammates. Most importantly, like where your teammates are and how you should figure out where you go to help with that. Anyway, sorry, it's just me rambling. So your Orisa, at least at the beginning, is going to have her shield there, like in this sort of arc. And that way, when she's standing here, she can, shoot shields and all that sort of stuff, provide that main damage. She's getting shielded from this balcony, and at the same time, she can get right clicks off over here into this pit, and to a smaller extent into this part of the canal. Your D.Va is going to be here, unless they have too much damage on her, in which case she's going to retreat back to here. And this is a good spot for D.Va because she can shut this down, just by walking across or, flying across, damaging them here. If there's only one person on top and she's dived on them, it's a lot harder for them to get heals and stuff. If they naturally sort of retreat back a little, then they have to walk out to main again, and all that sort of stuff. Your Junkrat is probably going to be, I would say here. Him having this high ground is really useful. He doesn't even need to be, he can be shooting from here. He can be shooting these walls. Again, that's like a practice thing and trying to figure out where you should be shooting at. But yeah, shoot off those walls. It's pretty helpful. And then your squishies are going to be on main behind here. So your Zen will be probably quite a bit further behind. He'll probably be about here, so that way he can sort of scout if there's going to be a flanker or a widow, something like that. If there is a widow, then he'll just fire off a shot every so often, and that'll be helpful. As Hanzo, you want to try and provide as much sort of 1v1ing flankers potential as possible. So you being in this spot is particularly helpful because if someone starts to shit on your Zen, then you've got it. Or alternatively, yeah, and so that works out. If they progress a little bit further, you've got this is your shield. That's really helpful. Your Junkrat is going to be here so that he can get ricochets off this wall and create this axis of damage. Your D.Va is going to be here so that she can... that was accidental. Your D.Va is going to be here so that she can do damage into their backline directly, and that's what your Junkrat's going to be doing as well. And then, for Hanzo, what might actually be helpful is this here. And the reason that this is good is that you are a long-range character, so you can still, depending on how good you are, get damage off onto them. The only thing is that if they've got a widow, you being on this high ground is hard, because you need to be off the high ground in order to be out of her line of sight. But if they don't, then sweet. If they've got a Tracer or something like that, she can't do anything to you. They've got a Genji and he's coming around. You can shoot him, make him probably use his deflect before he even, gets up the wall. Can he climb that? Yeah, they can climb it. So he can climb up that wall. And then at the same time, if someone from main is pressuring you, you can just... health pack. So that's really helpful. And that's why being in this position is particularly good, because if you're not confident in being able to jump to this pack and then retreat back and start fighting again, then you can fight here, retreat back, and then use this high ground, which is really helpful. There will probably be a part where you have to jump down and provide your sort of main shield focus. And I think for the most part, we'll want to be breaking their shield as much as possible. You know, if someone isn't out of position on their side, use your storm bows to fuck up their shield. No, that's irritating. But yeah, so you'll be wanting to either provide like those sort of high ground snipes if they're out of position, or if they're all in position, then just be a shield breaker. If they progress to like this crook here, this corner, then you being here is kind of helpful. In this position, you'll be able to... No, why didn't that work? Yeah, so you can jump across without even using lunge, which is useful because you can use lunge in a 1v1 to make your movements more unpredictable. You can jump mid-air, whereas no other character can do that apart from like D.Va. But yeah, so the reason that you being here is good is because bam, shut that down, bam, shut that down to some extent. And you can also provide main lane damage. Okay, moving across to this part. Once they capture this bit, the Orisa's going to be holding a shield here on the right side. And the reason it's on the right side is because the door is on the right side. You know, if you're shooting people in the door as Hanzo, there is an arc. You can jump and shoot people. And so that is like actually a valid tactic that some people do. And so naturally the Orisa shield's going to be here. It also provides like a good retreat for your team, because if the shield's here, it's going to make their sniping opportunities a bit harder. If you find yourself horribly out of position, you can probably utilize being in those spaces and being like behind them on a flank or something like that. But the gist of what I'm saying, because I'm not a Hanzo expert, is just like there is so much high ground at virtually every stage of this map apart from the very end, right? And so, you know, being here, we'll be able to utilize the shield, also to fend for your backline, retreat with one lunge if it's necessary, without probably sustaining damage, and you'll be in a good position to get shots off. This is also a good spot. You know, you'll be able to contest snipers from here, because both of you have, you know, if they've got a Hanzo at that high ground, and he's shooting at you, and you're at this high ground shooting at him, this is just like a mechanical 1v1, you know? The person that wins this 1v1 will be the person that's better mechanically. Or luck, which is, you know, an occasional thing. But yeah, I won't really go over in terms of dragons and stuff that you can use, purely because I'm not a pro with that sort of stuff. And we don't have a Zarya in this ideation of the strategy, because Zarya doesn't really have that much high ground, and preferably we want an off tank on high ground, which is why D.Va is used so often. You know, if you had a Reinhardt on high ground with like mobility, that'd be fucking scary, but he's not mobile, so he stays on the ground most of the time. And same with Orisa. So Orisa's going to be here fighting and all that sort of stuff. If you find yourself here, i.e. guarding Zen, you still have access to get that high ground, so please utilize that. Also, for Zen's positioning, the reason that he's going to be in here, he can shoot from here, provide help to the main line, also access to cover and a health pack, which is like super helpful. Plus he can regain here. So, you know, if he is at this position and they start progressing forwards and you can't contest that, walking back this way isn't good, right? Because you're just subjecting yourself to their line of sight. It'd be better to go this way if you've got damage. If you're damaged, then you can get a health pack, and then you can regain, and then you can start here, where the next Orisa shield's going to be. The reason Orisa shield's going to be here is because you will probably want to be on one of these high grounds. Like, this is a ridiculously good high ground. And the reason I say that is because in like Widow games and Hanzo games and just sniper games in general, a lot of it is knowing at all times where your counterpart is. You know, if you're in a Widow v Widow, knowing where your counter Widow is, and trying to make your movements and your appearances unpredictable so that you can get the one-up on them. You know, if there's a Widow on the middle of that bridge and she's not moving anytime soon because she's just used her grapple hook for some unknown reason, then you can be shooting at her from here, hide a little bit if she's aggroing you, jump across, shoot, that sort of thing. Like, these windows are your children. And at the same time, bam. Like, you want to use 1, 2, 3, and then have access to this 4th. If your Zen or something like that is getting harassed, this is like a really good sort of peel spot for you. Also, it's pretty secure because you can tell when people are coming up to try and contest you. But anyway, those high grounds are really useful. That 1, 2, 3 high ground, really useful. For this next bit, say they've just pushed under the bridge and suddenly your Orisa shield is going to be here, like in this sort of line. That means that your team is going to be sort of holding to here, if not to here as well. You know, this sort of line is shielded, so you'll want to be maybe here. I'm sort of thinking might be a good idea. Chances are at some point along this leg they'll have a grav if they have a Zarya, so this will be particularly helpful in helping that main tank damage so that they can get a little bit more shot on. There we are. So your D.Va and probably a Junkrat are going to be here, and in the previous videos I explained why, but the D.Va can shoot over a Rein shield or an Orisa shield and damage them, their backline, sorry. Same as your Junkrat. Your Junkrat can stand here, shoot that wall, have it rebound, and probably, I'll test this in the Junkrat video, probably ricochet into this, but if not, it at least can hit their backline, right? And so you can use that, hit their backline, or hit that 1 ricochet, 2 ricochet. So shoot it, bang, bang, and then comes back at a diagonal, which is something that you might want as well. Or even Junkrat can ricochet off this, which is something that you'd want to do as well, because as Junkrat you can clear out this space while being not within sight of it. What? Kind of ran up that. Anyway, so this is a really good spot for Junkrat. He's also got the D.Va there with him, so you've got 2 on the high ground, which is really good for distracting the enemy tanks. And that's sort of what you want to do. Like, a lot of the time you might notice in Plat games that, you know, the most successful teams are the ones that group up a whole lot and play really cohesively as a team and all that sort of stuff. But if you are able to split their attention apart, then that is all for the better. So as Hanzo, where do you want to be? You're going to have your Zen here, because he's got access to a health pack. He's got line of sight so that he can get discords and harmonies off on people. And if this gets aggroed by, like, you know, a Widow or something like that, he can just do like a quick retreat, you know, regain his shields and come back here, still do his thing. So I'm sort of leaning towards thinking that maybe you want to do the same thing. Chances are if you get grabbed, you're probably going to die, because there's always going to be a Mercy, there's always going to be a Hanzo, and they're always going to damage boost the Hanzo, and that just makes the game so fucking stale. But it doesn't matter. Oh, stretching, sorry. Yeah, so you'll want to probably not float around here, because this is, you know, a fairly aimless position. But if they're a bit further back, you might want to utilize this spot. You can also get your Sonics off so that you can figure out if anyone's behind here, figure out if anyone's behind there, and this is a really good, like, these yellow walls are a really good spot for Hanzo, because there are so many small lines of sight that you can get off recon arrows. And yeah, particularly helpful. You know, if there's someone, if you just do a quick recon here and you find that someone's crouching, like that sort of thing. And so that's particularly helpful. So say they've just capped this next point. Or if they're, you know, if they've just rounded this corner, or if they're around this sort of general area. As Hanzo, you might want to be here, you might want to be here. Sort of depends, really. Yeah, and why is this a good spot? Because you have access to the fight. You have a sort of surprise for your ult. That is a really good placement, because then that splits up their team. Like the keyword being splits. A lot of the time, and the reason that Hanzo's broken at the moment is because people previously could... And why Grav Dragon? I'll just go on a brief tangent. Grav Dragon right now is so much worse than Grav Dragon was in like season 2 or whatever season it was, because in those previous seasons where Zarya Hanzo was like a bit more part of the meta, people could escape that combo. You know, it was before Sombra was in the game, so she wasn't part of it, but she would previously be able to, I think she was able to translocate out of it. Also, Tracer could blink out of it, Genji could dash out of it, those sort of things, and that was sort of why dive was like such a massive thing. But also, if everyone did happen to get, you know, if you had a death ball and you had no mobility out of it, if you got Grav Dragoned, then Mercy would come in and she would get that sweet 5-man res. Yeah, and so it sort of made it a bit harder for Grav Dragon to be successful. But now Grav Dragon is everything. You know, you've got Hanzo, who is quite literally like the reason for the current meta being absolutely stale. People say it's Brigitte, but that's honestly bullshit, and they haven't really thought it through, because she's not in every team composition, whereas Hanzo is, because he's broken. You know, like, he's got mobility now, which is one buff that they added. He's got more consistent burst fire at range and at short distances, which makes him like essentially double or triple buffed, which is something that Blizzard really loves to do. And they go like, oh yeah, we're going to rework someone, and they don't just change one thing to make them better and then see how it goes, which is probably like the more responsible thing to do. They just change a whole bunch of things and really fuck it up. And because of that, Grav Dragon is so irritating. Yeah, and so if you're on defense, probably at some point along here they'll have a Grav. And you, I'm assuming, would want to... This spot would be good. Like just here. And the reason for that is you can Sonic here, and that's really helpful because you get a peek of main, you get a peek of that Widow's Nest, and all that sort of stuff. But also you can shut down this space if there's a, you know, someone that comes through. You can use your really, really low cooldowns on Storm Arrows. Yeah, you can use your really low cooldowns on Storm Arrows to your advantage, right? And you can still, if you're positioned here, or like in this sort of area, you can still punish anyone that peeks their head out here, provide yourself some getaway, and then that sets you up for, if they progress later on in the fight, then you can sort of make your way across to here. And the reason this is a good spot is because A, you can scout this, like this, this gloss, let's call this the gallery. Yeah, the gallery. I mean, there's art, so yeah, gallery. So if you're here, this doorway, you can scout out this part of the gallery, this part, and this door. So this is all set. Also, the windows are see-through, so, you know, all that sort of stuff. You can't damage through them unless you're using dragons, but, you know, what's the point of that? You can also get damage off here, damage in main, and damage in Junkrat's arcades area. We're trying to make this, like, our priority for Junkrat, keeping this place locked down. And providing resources to help him to do so. So, you know, you can shoot off some arrows here. You can also get some pretty good damn snipes off. That actually gets caught. Anyway, but yeah, you can provide as much damage as possible and still have this retreat back to your team. And then if it is necessary, then you can be on main providing that damage. I found that a lot of the time, the reason you lose against a Zarya Dragons combo when the payload's about here and you're on defense is because your team is just brawling on the point at this stage, whereas what we're sort of planning to do is to have your Junkrat on this area, have your main tank on this area, having Hanzo here in this sort of space. And the reason that he can be in this sort of space is that he can use this as a very important, maybe high ground. Like this would be good. Like, you don't have high ground as Hanzo, but you can make like temporary high ground, if that makes sense, you know. Jumping up here, you have like 1 or 2 seconds, and it's also a passive ability of yours, which means that this is on an infinite cooldown, or an unlimited cooldown. And so this is really damn helpful, and you can also help shut this down. Yes, they might have ownership of this now if they've got like a Genji Tracer that's flanking, and that means that you can just sort of back up a little bit, and you can still help here, help here, help here. Yeah, and then if there is like in some cases like a necessity to swap to like a soldier or something like that, you know, if they've got a Pharah and she's just dicking around here and you can't really shoot her or something like that, it happens sometimes, but who cares? You know, maybe it'd be more effective if you go soldier, or even McCree. McCree would probably be a really good choice here as well. Who would... Zahir normally plays our Hanzo. It's either Zahir or oh my god, come on. So yeah, that might be the solution, is swapping to something in case the Hanzo is getting shut down or something like that. But yeah, you know, that's very much down to like your call. Hanzo could still be useful here, it just depends on how well you're going at that moment in time. You could still use a soldier with his mobility in the same way. You know, he'd have to like sprint upstairs, but it'd still take less time than like a McCree would to get to high ground, so that's good. But yeah, so that's Hanzo.